What if the most important letter of your life arrived one day too late? What if your father spent years trying to tell you something, but you never gave him the chance? And what if the final words he ever wrote changed everything you believed about him? This isn't just a story about losing a father, it's about discovering who he really was after he was gone. Rain tapped softly against black umbrellas as 23-year-old Ethan Brooks stood silently beside his father's grave. People offered their condolences. "I'm so sorry. He was a good man." Ethan only nodded because, in his heart, he wasn't sure they were talking about the same person. His father had always been quiet, always working, always tired, birthdays missed, soccer games skipped, school plays forgotten. To Ethan, it felt like his dad had loved his job more than his family. As everyone slowly walked away, an elderly lawyer approached him with a small wooden box. Inside the box, there was only one envelope. On the front were 6 handwritten words. "Please don't judge me too soon." Ethan's hands froze. What could possibly be inside? Back home, the house felt strangely empty. Ethan sat alone and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I never found the courage to tell you these things face to face. You probably believe I chose work over you. Honestly, I don't blame you." Ethan stopped reading. His chest tightened. Was this an apology or another excuse? He almost folded the letter shut, but one sentence near the bottom caught his eye. "Before you decide who I really was, open the blue envelope hidden in my workshop." Blue envelope? What workshop? His father had never allowed anyone inside, not once. The old workshop stood behind the house. Dust covered the windows. The lock hadn't been opened in months. With the spare key from the lawyer, the door slowly creaked open. Inside, everything was perfectly organized. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Half-finished wooden toys covered the shelves. Toy trains, little airplanes, tiny animals, hundreds of them. Ethan stared in disbelief. His father wasn't a carpenter, so why had he spent years making toys? Then, he noticed a bright blue envelope tucked beneath an old workbench. His heartbeat quickened. Inside the blue envelope, there were photographs, children smiling, hospitals, orphanages, holiday parties. Each picture showed one of his father's handmade toys. Ethan's eyes widened. Every Saturday, that was the same day Ethan remembered his father always being too busy. His entire childhood, he had believed his father simply didn't care. But now, nothing made sense anymore. Then he found something else, a small notebook filled with names, dates, medical bills, scholarships every month. His father quietly paid for families who couldn't afford treatment. Ethan rushed back inside the house. His mother was waiting. She looked at the notebook, then quietly began to cry. "I hoped you'd never have to find out this way." Ethan stared. "What do you mean?" She took a slow breath. "The overtime wasn't for promotions. It was because your father had heart disease?" Ethan's world stopped. "He knew?" She nodded. For nearly 12 years, doctors had warned him to slow down. Instead, he worked even harder because he wanted enough money to secure Ethan's future and still help everyone else. He didn't want you growing up worried, so he carried the fear alone. Ethan couldn't speak. The man he thought had ignored him had actually been protecting him. His mother reached into an old drawer. There was one more letter. "He asked me to wait until you understood." Ethan carefully unfolded it. "My son, if you've reached this letter, then maybe you've finally seen the parts of me I kept hidden. I'm sorry I wasn't at every game. I'm sorry you mistook my silence for lack of love. But every hour I spent away from you hurt me too. I watched your school videos after everyone went to sleep. I kept every drawing you ever made. I carried your kindergarten photo inside my wallet until it faded. You were never second place. not even for one day. A tiny photograph slipped from the envelope. It was Ethan holding his father's hand. On the back, his father had written, "The happiest day of my life." Tears rolled down Ethan's face. He had spent years believing a lie, not because his father lied, but because love isn't always loud. A week later, Ethan returned to the workshop. This time, he didn't see dusty shelves. He saw unfinished dreams. He picked up a tiny wooden airplane, then another, and another. Months passed. Every Saturday, Ethan began visiting the same children's hospital, just like his father once had. He brought handmade toys, read stories, played games. No cameras, no social media, no applause, only smiles. One little girl hugged him tightly. "Are you an angel?" Ethan smiled through tears. "No, my dad taught me how to love." Years later, people remembered Ethan as one of the kindest men in town. Many believed he had inspired countless acts of generosity. But whenever someone thanked him, he simply smiled and pointed toward an old framed letter hanging on the wall. His father's final words, "The greatest love isn't always the one people notice. Sometimes it's the one that quietly changes the world."